talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot see.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Sunday evening brings the professionals, and I'm delighted to see you, joined by George and Mitch together, and Stu. So good evening, lads. How are you?
Good evening, everyone.
Good, man.
Good to see you. And first of all, I've got to start with this poem that I've been sent by the Geordie poet. I've seen it on Twitter, but it goes like this. Welcome to the tune, Anthony Gordon. We'd have preferred Diaby, but couldn't afford him. Just banter la, I'm sure that you'll find that most of us fans are so happy you signed. Some have suggested that you're a little shitehouse, but I say it's hardly his fault he was born as a scouse. Well, you're our shitehouse now, so that's all that really matters, is you do your stuff on the pitch and leave defences in tatters. Some don't like your clubber, some don't like your hair, but Buster good for the tune, and I'm sure they won't care. I, for one, am absolutely delighted that you decided to sign for Newcastle United. So we wish you well, and we wish you luck. We may have wanted Diaby, but now we don't give a duck.
Very good.
Very nice. Very nice.
He signed, and let's face it, there's been a mixed opinion on social media, as there often is, Stu. But look, I listened to that interview today that Newcastle United put out. Wow, fantastic. He again, exactly what I expected. He epitomises, in words alone, what an Eddie Howe player should be. And I think we've signed a really good player there at a really good price.
The potential's unlimited, isn't it? But did you see he's actually signed?
Yeah.
Well, before the professional show.
Yeah.
As mentioned on Wednesday evening.
Yes.
Correct.
All right, just thought I'd score another one off the list.
I don't like to big you up, Stu. I like you to do it yourself.
No, I'm quite capable of doing it myself. Don't worry about that.
Wrexham 2, Sheffield United 2, for those of you who are interested in the FA Cup. It's a right humdinger, this, backwards and forwards. Wrexham were 1-0 down. They went 2-1 up, and now it's 2-2. But go on, Stu. Anthony Gordon.
No, I think really the potential, you can see what's happening and what the plan is going forward, and it's going to be all about pace up front, isn't it? And I'm sure we did touch on it the other day, but if we're defending a corner and you have the pace of Gordon, Isaac and Almiron for now, you stand them on the halfway line, because there's no way they're going to leave 3-on-3. Absolutely no chance any defence in this country would leave 3-on-3. So that means they're going to be 4, possibly 5 to cover the pace, because they'll be shit scared of what's going to happen. That, the old cliche of defence into attack very quickly. Well, this would be the epitome of it, wouldn't it? So if that means they've got 4 to 5 defenders back plus the goalkeeper, our box isn't going to be congested with their forwards. So psychologically, it's a great move, and it means I can't say we'll concede less, because we're not conceding any at all. But it'll lessen the threat of conceding goals from corners if that's how they're going to play it. And I know I have said previously as well, but Gordon, when he first came on the scene, I was really, really impressed with his touch. Obviously his pace, but his awareness for such a young lad, and the fact that you could see he loves the game, he breathes the game, and his ability to bring others into play. But he's also his willingness to run and fight for his badge. And I'm sure you bring all that and more. And then once the coaching staff get a hold of him, and I'm quite sure they've already got a dossier prepared for him and how they can improve him and where he can make his personal improvements. And from that video that you just mentioned there, Steve, he looks like he's delighted to be here, relieved, but also delighted and excited. And you can't ask more for a new signing than what he's offered so far.
No, definitely not. Mitch, it's another one in the bag. And we said, it would take time. Newcastle kept saying it's going to be late in the window, but they've gone big again, and it's a really good signing.
These negotiations were always going to take time, just because of the nature of this window. I think if any deal was to be done to our advantage, it was always going to be a club who needed to do a deal, who maybe needed the cash, and that we were in the box seat in terms of driving the negotiations. No, this is a player we were being told matter of weeks ago was a £60 million player, and we've got him in for 40 plus add-ons. That is a good deal. You know, when you take into account he's English, he's young, it's a transfer between two Premier League clubs, and that always seems to carry a premium. I don't think we can argue too much about it. And his opening words on record have been fantastic. There's no doubt in there. There's some subtle little digs at Everton as well. And then his little excursion to the Metro Centre yesterday, I wonder who sanctioned that. Because whoever did wants a pat on the back. Because that's just been a fabulous PR exercise for him. So all round, talk about hitting the ground running and immediately turning any of the negativity towards him, which I can, to an extent, can understand people's concerns. I think that's all been unravelled in 48 hours. And so bring it on. You know, I think this lad really is going to bust a gut for me.
George, what's your take on the arrival and subsequent interview?
I mean, absolutely delighted. I mean, just to repeat what I said the other night, it's in the right direction as far as Newcastle United is concerned. He's young, he's British. I wouldn't go as far as English because he's born in Liverpool. I mean, got to be careful. Yeah, I mean, the kid's got it all. And when you reckon that only is the month ago that he was clocked as one of the fastest forwards in the Premiership, and you add him to Isak and Almiron and all the other flyers that we've got in the place, it's an absolutely master stroke. And Stu's right; it signals you're going to get pace and skill off Newcastle United in the future. That you're going to have to handle the two, and the other thing is that they compliment the club on how professionally they orchestrate all these things. He comes as everybody, a lot of people expected, but they weren't sure when. He comes in quietly, he signs. There's a beautiful picture of him with a beam and smile signing his contract, and 3 beaming smiles behind it with the directors making their views known in a pictorial sense. And then as Neil says, whoever orchestrated the trip to the Metro Centre does need a pat on the back, because that was absolutely great. You know, he wanders around the Metro Centre getting selfies taken with anybody that'll have them, and then can't get back to his hotel because there's no taxis. So a fan takes him back to his hotel. I mean, you couldn't write that. That's all pure fiction in many ways, but absolutely spot on for us. And I couldn't be happier, Steve. It's an absolute delight. Can't wait to actually see him in the black and white shirt on the pitch, and what a day that'll be. And all these doubters and so on's going on about it takes me back to the discussions I've had with Keith on here about young players trying too hard and doing all sorts of things when they're in a relegation battle, and when a club's in trouble and they're trying too hard. I suspect that some of the stuff that we've seen him involved in has been part of that. He's just wanted to break his gut for his team. And that's what we wanted to do for us. Well, we can't blame him for doing it for the people he's just come from, because that's in his makeup. That's part of him. So I think, that's absolutely great for us. And I mean, well, watch out to whoever comes our way. Then this kid's gonna set St James's Park on fire, I think.
Yeah, no, 100%. From my perspective, I'm really excited to see him unleashed, and he's obviously going to have to wait because he's cup tied, of course, for the League Cup game. But we've got a league game coming thick and fast at the weekend, and I wouldn't bet against Gordon going straight into the squad and being available as a substitute on that day. But looking forward to that, and it boosts the squad after the departure, of course, of Chris Wood. Mozza, yeah, hilarious. Gordon is February on the Everton calendar this year.
Yes, he is. We've just been having a look at it.
That used to be us. How many times did that used to be us?
Aye.
I know, so funny that. So funny. Kurt Johnson says as well, George Defo qualifies as a professional. Keep the other lads right, George, he says.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
I guess, Stu, you know, with a clock ticking down on the transfer window, though, people are still, you know, rightly so as well, looking out for incomings rather than looking in for outgoings. And Chippers says, do the lads think Madison is still a possibility before Tuesday? I have a feeling it could well be. Aaron Robson says, are we still in for Madison, Steve? So a lot of interest in Madison, Stu. I mean, it's a hard one to say, isn't it? Ben Jacobs is still going on about Conor Gallagher. Newcastle potentially going in there with a loan deal. Maybe that could be the case. Madison, again, somebody who I've wanted since the club was taken over, is always going to be on Newcastle fans' lips. And the suspicious absence of Madison with the injury, etc. You just, you know, and I don't know. He played yesterday in the FA Cup, means nothing to us. We're out of that now. But do you think there's still a possibility that we might bring Madison in?
Well, it's important that he played yesterday. He needs to be match fit when he signs for us, doesn't he? So give him a nice little run out. I'm just laughing at the bottom. I'm waiting for George to say it's a good night from me and it's a good night from him. The way they're sitting there. I think it's well documented that Madison's the club's priority signing or main signing or the one they want more than anything else. And we have to be respectful that he is a Leicester player and Leicester obviously want to keep the best player. But wants and wishes sometimes go out the window when it comes to football and finance, doesn't it? And come the summer when they may be more open to sell him, he'll have a 1 year left of his contract, and then they're going to be in the same position that they are with Tielemans, where they could lose him for nothing. So it might, as much as Brendan Rodgers says he wants him to stay, and I'm more than sure he does want him to stay, Brendan Rodgers doesn't run the football club, he manages the football team. So there's no smoke without fire, and the way I see it and knowing how Saudis do business, and I still think they'll be putting another bid in. Now, whether it's accepted or not, they've made it clear that if their intentions that they do want him, anyhow does want him, and that should be enough for the board to try and get the man without being held to ransom by too much. And the Saudi way of doing it is it's like you get invited to their home and they like to show off's not the right phrase, but they like to impress you. And what a better way to impress the people, the guests in the home of St. James is on Tuesday, unveiling him, Ashby and Gordon at the same time. Imagine that before the semi-final, how that would get the crowd going. And that also the team. So whether he comes or not, I think on every show we've done, Steve, since the takeover, we've mentioned Madison. And I honestly believe they will be bidding for him again. And I wouldn't be shocked if we have him signed by Tuesday evening. And if not, then it's something that I'm sure we'll revisit in the summer. And it could give Leicester an opportunity to help them stay up. But also from a player's perspective, he could look to see, right, let's see who's in the Champions League. But I think the way this juggernaut's going now, you don't want to miss the boat. And I think he's given enough indications as much as he can without being disrespectful to Leicester that he'd be open to signing for Newcastle United. And if you can imagine a midfield of Bruno sitting there with Madison in front of him on the right and Joe Linton on the left, and then you've got the pace up front, that's a forward six that'll be the envy of just about every club in Europe, I would say.
Yeah, God, I can't help but I always break into a smile when you start talking like that, Stu. It is great. Like, no, it is great. It is great. It's there's very little you can do. It's after so many years of misery just to hear, you know, we're talking it like this again. I never thought I'd see the day, but we are. Neil, you know, again, Madison, he is on a lot of fans' lips, and you know, Stu's right, isn't he? I mean, the players give him as many indications as he can that he's probably wanting to come. And I think Gordon signed at the Newcastle as well. A kid who's, you know, 21, keen as mustard, you know, obviously wanting to get into the England setup as well. You know, Madison coming here would be a perfect fit.
Wouldn't he just? I think, you know, again, we go back to something we've talked about all month. people at the club told her at the start of the month, January's a long month. We'll do the deals if they're right and when they're right, and only then. And it was always going to be the case. The best way for us to play our hand was not to dive in early. So Everton need cash. We've got a deal, which again I'll tie it in with something somebody asked about. Why did they say undisclosed fee? And it's usually when there's lots of add-ons. So the fee might be 40, 45 million, but they might only be getting 20, 25 of that up front, depending on other little add-ons and things. And so they cannot say what it is explicitly. And clubs have gone very sort of dark about their business since FFP. Everybody wants to keep their cards close to their chest, both buying and selling teams, because some selling teams don't want other people to know that they're in negotiation with what they've got in their back pocket from the player they've just sold. So I think we're in a really good position for regards to that. Leicester aren't too dissimilar. FFP, they've been up against it. We've gone in 2 or 3 times for Maddison. We've made it clear that we're interested in him. I think the silence this time seems to be quite golden from both sides, though. But also positioning ourselves with Conor Gallagher might be a point of right. If the Maddison deal doesn't go through this window, there's our plan B. It's already lined up. My God, us seeming like we know what we're doing in the transfer market. That's,
Could be a leaked threat, Mitch, as well, couldn't it? Well, don't worry, Leicester. If you're not going to do this deal and miss out on this money that we've got for you, we can always get Conor Gallagher on loan.
And as Stu rightly says, if he then ticks onto a year left on his contract and he's got the potential to go for nout, then Leicester really are paying their money up the wall. So, because Tielemans could go the same way. And let's not beat about it. Stu's been banging this drum for long enough and understand why, and I understand why. And I wouldn't genuinely, as we approach the end of the window, I've said all along we would be busy up to almost the last hours of this window, and it wouldn't surprise us to be that way this time at all, because that's pretty much what they've told me, and we've got to feed off that. I think the Gordon signing is very much one of the ones, right age, right price, right timing. Maddison, if we would get him in for anything around about the 50 mark, becomes right age, right price, right timing. This is what it's about. Anybody telling you that they know what Newcastle United's business is going to be in any window is making it up as they go along, because none of them do. Now, one of the decisions they might have to make is, do we spend this money now and then limit ourselves a little bit in the summer? But I think that's going to be a reasoned and sensible argument. But in terms of being allowed, as somebody's just said, I think Leicester need the cash more than people realise. So it may not be a case of whether they're allowed in terms of footballing interests, but in terms of business interests and ticking boxes for FFP, they may have to. So we're in a superbly strong position. And I think if he wasn't to come this window, believe you me, in my opinion, it's not for the lack of trying.
Yeah.
George, what's your thoughts on Maddison then? Would you love to see him in a black and white shirt? Would that
Yes.
make would that make the business that Newcastle have done so far this season the best that we've done in many a year?
Oh, best of many a year, yeah. Better than that, Steve. I mean, I can't remember a transfer window like this. But even before that, from the old-fashioned days when they used to sign people at midnight down at a hotel down the A1, and they were playing the next day. We've never had that sort of input from those days either. So no, it would be fantastic. It would send all sorts of messages elsewhere, of course, to our elite friends who are trying to clamber up to a Champions League place like the one that we're holding at the moment, and completely ignore us. That's the other thing. I mean, you listen to all the so-called pundits, and it's Arsenal, Manchester City, and then there's Manchester United. Hold on, what happened to third place? Well, I don't think they believe that we can stay there. Well, they're in for a shock. And these signings, Gordon, Maddison, I even would be quite pleased to see young Conor Gallagher joining the ranks, because there's another young man who I think anyhow could turn into a real diamond away from the the madness that there is at Chelsea at the moment. I mean, as a young player, is to see all these multi-million pound signings coming in on 7, 8, 10-year deals, and you're bound to think, well, hold on, where's my future in all of this? And he you know, and it's plan B, as Stu said. If Leicester are so far wanting to turn their noses up to Newcastle United, well, all right. But as you also eloquently said as well, had on for another year and you'll not get 20 million for him, never mind 50 million. And so, I think it's all good news, all being handled very professionally, again, by our management team and augurs well for the future. But as I say, I think it would be great addition to the squad. Great addition.
Yeah, just confirmation, Gary. Mitch did take George out for his dinner today. He's had a nice meal, lads, didn't you?
Yes, very much so.
Technically, I didn't know, but that's another story.
Aye, okay. And Sparky,
somebody else paid for it.
Even though it's not Ask George tonight, he says, "Can you ask George how many times has Mitch struggled with the stairs after a night on the cop?"
You're steep, like bloody hell.
Son of THC, good evening. He says, "Afternoon, lads. I missed the Amigos live. What's the lads' thoughts on our chairman NASA being blamed by Elon Musk for backpedaling on the deal for Tesla? Elon claim was a done deal and fund secured." But this question he put in the other night, it's something I'm completely clueless about. I've got to be honest, Stu. I don't know whether you can show any light on it. There's a bit of a ructions going on, is there, between NASA and Elon Musk, is there?
Well,
3-2 to Wrexham. Wrexham have just scored in the 85th minute in the FA Cup, 3-2. What a game this has been, by the way, proper FA Cup. But yeah, go on, Stu.
No, just saying, I thought it was your fault, Steve. You seem to get the blame for everything else. So
it's definitely not my fault. But
Mr. Ryan and Elon Musk having a tear-to-tear, then surely you must get blamed somewhere along the line. But no, I think Musk, as far as I understand it, and I do have limited knowledge on this, that he wanted Twitter outright, and because the PIF owned a share of it, they were either reluctant sellers or refused to sell, which they were within the rights to do. And then there was just the usual finger pointing from one side and decorum from the other, as I understand it. Maybe Mitch can shed more light on that. But regarding the Conor Gallagher thing, I really, and I shouldn't say this in case it happens, I really wouldn't want him to come to Newcastle. I think he's not as good, or he's not better than what we have in there at the moment. And it would stifle the growth of the Willocks, the Andersons, the Longstaffs. You know, I mean, what message does that say to them? We'll get another kid in your age, in your position, but he's only on loan for a few more games, and then we'll get rid of him. It just tells them that their time's up if you get someone in on loan like that. So I think if they're getting someone in, there has to be someone where the squad can accept, yeah, this is a major upgrade. That's just my personal opinion on that. And he doesn't want to move north anyway.
Mitch, your thoughts on this question about NASA and Elon Musk?
Well, the only other thing that's a little deeper on that is yes, there's a Twitter element to it, but also he's having a little stab at somebody connected with basically with fossil fuels and production of fossil fuels, because it's becoming more and more evident every day that some of the electric vehicles aren't as green as they say they are. And that some of them, it takes 10 years for them to be technically carbon neutral. And it's become pretty evident that it's not necessarily going to be the way to go because of limitations on certain commodities where we have to suddenly double the amount we're producing to keep up with the rate to make it all carbon neutral. And we've never, ever, historically in the world, ever done that. And so there's a lot of questions being asked both ways about the way forward now in terms of being very green and energy. And obviously it makes a mockery of some of the things that Musk's been involved with in terms of electric vehicles and things like that. So I think you find there's a lot of different levels of political agenda there. As ever, when it ever comes to some sort of discussion in the Middle East, be it about football, or be it about energy, or be it about something else. There's always a geopolitical subcontext that you have to take into consideration. So it wouldn't surprise me if there's not a little bit of that aimed at Al Rumayyan and his connections to PAF, after there was a lot of mud slung about Abu Dhabi hosting certain things here, and not here in the UK, but back in the UAE, when they're one of the biggest fossil fuel providers in the world, and so I think there's lots of layers in that, which is probably way too complex to get into now. But ultimately, somebody getting a little bit toys out of cot over the fact he cannot manage his social media platform the way he wants to, tough.
Yeah, exactly. Just talking about Ashby as well. I mean, more or less a done deal. Was it £3 million that they've agreed price with West Ham, Stu? Again, it's another youngster. Somebody who I think was said on the show last week, Wednesday. We mentioned that Ashby coming in would just be another one of those youngsters coming in who, would be a backup to Trippier and hope to follow in Trippier's footsteps. So looks like Newcastle have got their man in that case as well.
Yeah, I don't know a lot about Ashby. I know that he's Scottish, so that's a good start for him. But exactly. I've got friends in Tenerife who were formed and a major part of the Tenerife buzz, and same in Dubai. Me and Mitch have got mutual friends that go down to Nelson's just down the road. So I've been speaking to them the last few days, asking their opinion of them. And the general consensus is that he's been stifled by Moyes, and they all really, really rate him. They all think he has a big future. Now, it's for him, it's a move closer to home, as I've hinted about or alluded to for Kieran Tierney to make at some stage in the future. It's a move closer to home, but also he can learn from someone like Trippier, not just on how to be a right back or how to be a better right back, but on how to be a better professional and how to conduct yourself on and off the pitch. And for any aspiring right back, if you get the opportunity to learn from someone like that, and this is why we talked about when it was about Etike in the summer, why didn't you come to Newcastle? If you've got any forwards saying, right, you can go and trade and play with Messi and, and the likes of Neymar, it's a no-brainer. So for Ashby, I think it's something he's wanted to do. I think he feels like his progress was not blocked but stifled at West Ham, where he can. I think we all know Trippier's 32 now. He'll probably have 2 seasons at the standard he's playing at, and he'll need resting more, especially when we'll have European games, or what the likelihood is we'll have European games in midweek as well. So it's an opportunity for him to get game time, and as I said, learn without sounding too brash or disrespectful to West Ham, learning with a better squad of players and a team that's moving forward rather than a team that's either standing still or going backwards. So for us, I think it's for both parties. It's a great signing, and very clever of West Ham as well to get a future sell on. So, for example, I think it's half the money. So we paid 3. So if we sell them for 20, we've got to take off the 3 and then split the profit. So what's that, 17.5 each? So it's fair enough. It's a win-win-win. And if he does flop, then I'm sure we've spent more than £3 million on worse players in the past.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Young Ashby, George?
I just look at how long they've been chasing him. Somebody at the club obviously thinks this kid's a great player. I mean, it's not as though it was yesterday we discovered him. We've been talking about him for quite a few months, haven't we? That tells me an awful lot about him straight away. That the people that matter at St James's Park think he's got the talent to develop and be a more than useful player for us. And I agree with Stu. The fact that he's got Scottish heritage doesn't do him any harm either. It's a good one. Can I go back on the Musk thing, Steve?
Of course you can, yeah.
Because it seems to me there are lots of reasons for it, but when I look at it, it's more simple than some of those reasons. It's a little boy who's got a lot of money and is used to getting his own way with everything. And suddenly he's come across somebody who'd say, well, you're not having that.
Yeah,
And
someone said
that's what it's about. That's what it's about, as far as I'm concerned. He really doesn't like being told, no, you can't. And so he'll make a lot of fuss, try and get people in court and all those other things. So, yeah, that's my take on it. But also, from a technical point of view, I agree with Neil on the engineering. Electric cars aren't as clever as some people think in terms of carbon neutral. So, yeah, but I think he's just doesn't like being told you can't have it. And simple as that. So, yeah, go back to where you started us off. Ashby, I look forward to seeing the kid, sort of swapping places with Trippier off the bench occasionally, because that sounds like what they've got in mind. He's so talented. What I'm puzzled about is why he doesn't seem to fit in at West Ham. I find that odd that they would allow somebody of that talent to slip through their fingers. It seems a bit odd to me, but smashing. Let's have more and more of these youngsters coming to the tune.
Hard break for Wrexham.
I just want to interject, Steve, when they're doing that. Just what George was said there, how long they've wanted him for. And it shows, like, the transfer policy, how they've waited long to get Gordon because they were after him in the summer. They did the same with Botman, as we all know. So there's an idea for John for a new T-shirt. If we get Madison this window, the T-shirt's got to have, the Mounties in Canada, they always get their man. You've got to have a picture of Miadad's head on a Mountie and say he always gets his man if we get Madison. It's got to be a better T-shirt.
Nice one, Stu.
John's in the chat. I'm sure he'll do that. Yeah, heartbreak for Wrexham against 10-man Sheffield United as they've managed to scramble an equaliser in with 2 minutes of injury time left to play, and still a good result. But they'll get a little bit more money going back for the replay. But yeah, bit of heartbreak. Still 2 minutes to go. Like never say never in this game. Has to be said. Okay, just over halfway through the show. Time for the ads. A big thank you to all our sponsors, as always. Thanks to Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, and our website skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensaries, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists. You can find them at thegohd.com. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria, and you can find them at mrvickies.co.uk. If you want to make an order, give them a call on 01768 210 102 or email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Thanks to Blowhole Breweries, you can get a selection of beers, and the cans are in the design of the old Newcastle United entertainers strips. Blowholebrewery.co.uk. Thanks to Melly's Carpets and Beds, laying our reputation one recommendation at a time. The best quality around at the cheapest prices. Melly's Beds and Carpets.co.uk. Email sales@mellysbedsandcarpets.co.uk or give Melly a call on 01670 632 216. And thanks to United Group Travel Limited, UK Coach Holidays in Morpeth, 01670 362 460 or mobile 07957 141 654. Graham, your driver, Beverly answering your calls and looking after you on your tour. Some great deals coming up there. Get yourself onto the website to check them out. Thanks also to Media Arts, who do all of our videos and help us with the technological side of things. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. If you want to subscribe to the channel, then hit the subscribe button below. Hit the thumb up, which is the like button, which does us a big favour with the algorithm. And click share. Share it to Newcastle United, Facebook groups or Twitter accounts or your own social media to help our community grow. And if you want to join the channel, hit the join button. And for as little as $1.99 a month, you can get some members-only videos and chances to win some fantastic prizes. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, and the rest. Don't forget as well that we do events through NUFC Matters. And this one is the next event coming up, Friday, the 24th of February, an evening with Newcastle United legend Steve Howie. Friday, the 24th of February, Tyneside Irish Centre, and tickets are available at £50 from newcastlelegends.com. If you also go onto Voucher and search for the event, you can pick up a bargain on there. Don't forget, we also support the food bank on this channel. www.nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk is where you can find the Matchday Bucket. You can make a virtual donation to the Matchday Bucket 365 days of the year to keep helping the food bank in Newcastle. Don't forget as well, we do have an evening with Nobby Solano, 25th of March at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets for that are £15, and you can get your tickets from nufcmatters.com. £15 of the tickets as well for the Steve Howie event, 24th of February at the Irish Centre. Tickets again from nufcmatters.com. Lee Clark as well for an intimate evening with Lee Clark, Thursday the 9th of March 2023 at the Tynemouth Surf Cafe. Contact Tynemouth Surf Cafe direct to get your tickets for that event. Let's talk outgoings now, lads. And again, it raises its head, every so often about ASM and Sky pushing this tonight about AC Milan again considering a St. Maximin move. They're switching their attention to ASM because it's an alternative to Zaniola, who they've been chasing. And Newcastle, the interesting line at the bottom says, Sky Sports News understands Newcastle would listen to significant offers for St. Maximin this month. Now, that's the first time, Neil, that I've seen anything like that at all from a news outlet. You know, a source saying that Newcastle would listen to a substantial offer. That's different to what we've heard in the past.
It is, but I still think a lot of these stories, starting from we're in for McTominay for £50 million. No, we're not. To ones like this are agent driven. And I think we are the easy play to use when somebody is interested in something or somebody wants to generate a little bit of interest in something. And if AC Milan are in for one player, but the negotiations for that player aren't going so well, then very publicly they're saying, but we've got this other option.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't necessarily listen to it. I think, genuinely, if the club was happy to let ASM go, you would have been gone ages ago. If there was that kind of interest in him. And I think there's two different questions in there. One, how ready are the club to let him go? My personal feeling is I think at the right price he would. But it would have to be at the right price and on our terms. The second thing is who is actually interested in him. And if people are genuinely interested in him, where are the bids? Because there hasn't been. There just hasn't been. So I tend to ignore that at the moment. And I wouldn't get too head up about it. You're right, though. The different spin on that is if that source has gotten word from the club that, yes, at the right price he's on his way, then that is a little shift. But I think that's a shift publicly. I think privately, if the right bid came in for him, they would have done the deal.
Okay, and what about Shelby as well? A lot of people in the chat talking about Shelby, Mitch. Talk of Forest. I mean, again, it's unsubstantiated that at the moment, but seems to be picking up momentum because it's in the Telegraph. Luke Edwards is the man putting the story out.
One thing about Shelby out is it's another big wage off the books. However, I don't think they would let him go without another central midfielder coming in. And that takes us back to the Maddison-Conor Gallagher argument. And I think if he was to go, that's another big flag that says there is another midfielder coming in. And I think, again, they wouldn't necessarily just let him go. The way House talked about Shelby during his times here, that the only reason he would let him go is if he felt he had something better lined up. That's my personal feeling. So again, I'm pretty relaxed about it.
George, what's your take on those two potential outgoings? Would either of them upset you, in this window? Would you like to keep a hold of ASM?
Shelby wouldn't. In fact, there's a bit of me that says that I'd be quite happy to see Shelby go. But as Neil says, on the understanding that there's another midfielder coming in somewhere, and that would seal it for me. I think his future with us for John Joe Shelby's limited, and it's an opportunity to do what they did with Chris Wood and let the player have a say in perhaps negotiate himself a nice little payoff towards the end of his career. He's done his bit for us at times. So no, that one I wouldn't be too upset about. ASM, I think, is a different matter because we know the talent that is in there and that Eddie Howe's trying so hard to unlock. And sometimes it's successful, sometimes it isn't. But the other thing is, if you're a journalist and you're looking at Newcastle squad and you want to pick on a player who might or might not be in favour or might be unhappy or might not be available, then ASM's an ideal target, isn't he? He's still off the field doing things his way when the club would like him to do other things. I mean, his recent trip to France for the new year. I mean, I think it's nearly an open secret now that the club didn't want him to do that, but he did it. Well, all right, but it makes him an easy target for these sort of stories and these sort of rumours. But would I want him to see him go? No, I don't particularly would want to see him to go because, as he showed at Southampton the other night when he came on with Isaac, he still has the power to upset and unlock defences when on his form. I've got no doubt if he hadn't been clattered the other night on his way through the middle with that ball, that would have been goal number 2 coming up. No doubt about it, and that would have put him on a pedestal in a different way. So no, I don't want to see ASM go. I wanted to see the successful harnessing the clear raw talent there is in the bloke, and if he can knuckle down and do as he's told, then I can't see why we should want to let him go. And again, going back to something Neil said, is how many of these stories are generated by those that are attached to him, like agents and people like that. Not so bothered about Shelby, but would be disappointed about ASM.
Well, it's built momentum because somebody said it's on Sky now. So I've flicked over from BBC to Sky, and it is on the yellow ticker tape. The Forest have officially approached Newcastle United to take Shelby. So Luke Edwards doing what he does best, finding the story out and then from someone else and putting it up there, allegedly. Stu, what's your thoughts then? ASM, Shelby, honestly, that is the first time I have seen, what I would say a more reputable source, because Sky tend not to run things unless they're going to be, more or less correct. Newcastle will listen to offers. That's not coming from an agent as such. It's coming from it's coming from somewhere, but potentially Shelby's agent, maybe ASM's agent. Sorry, but I just genuinely think that there's something in this, and it could be again, it could be a big incoming, but 2 outgoings.
Well, I'll start with Shelby first, so to give the crop merchants time to get the fingers on the buttons ready when I talk about St. Maximin. The Shelby is injured, is he not?
Yeah, but on his way back, he's got to be a couple of weeks maybe from coming back. It was 6 weeks layoff, him and Target, but we're 4 weeks in, 2 weeks to go, and that depends on how his recovery's gone.
Well, this broke on here, so I haven't heard anything about Shelby, but if he goes, then he goes with my best wishes, and I'm sure most of the fans will say the same. Thanks a lot. See you later. We've mentioned many times that there's no room for sentiment at this club as the club evolves, as the team progresses. You've got to look at the people now that I know I've said before, the people that are in the team now will be squad players next season, and then out of the match day squad the season after, and that's what happens. You know, we always keep referring back to Keegan being when the Keegans, you know, that you got rid of Kelly, Peacock, Mickey Quinn. You know, they were all fan favourites, and you know, and we accepted it because it was for the betterment of the team, which proved to be the case. And this momentum shift's going to happen, or this is going to have to happen through the squad that we've got. We are carrying too many people. Would Shelby be in the starting 11? No. Is he? If we get a decent fee for him, is he sellable? Absolutely he is, because he's not. Well, he's the wrong side of 30 now for what this team is. His legs seem to have gone for the way that Eddie Howe wants to play the game anyway. And they say we get a fee for him. Mitch said it. He's got a big salary. That releases more money to give to someone new. It helps the younger ones grow. It creates a space, you know, so that I can see the possibilities in Shelby going now, like you've mentioned, has come from a more credible source. Regarding Alan St. Maximin, I don't think he'll be here by next season. I'd be surprised if he got sold in the next couple of days. That's not to say they wouldn't sell him if the bid was right. But he seems to have turned a corner. Now, I'm going to steal a phrase that Mark Byers put on Twitter the other day, and it just made us laugh. It really did. I laughed out loud. I won't say lol because I think it's too fashionable for me, but I did laugh out loud when I read it. It's like, the phrase used was bonk on. And I don't understand the way people get a bonk on how St. Maximin's turned this massive corner. Well, because he managed to pass to a couple of players in the same colour shirt as him, and he didn't try and take on the world. But that's what he should be doing. But it's great that he's fitting in, and it's about time that he's fitting in. And as I've said it many times, that he's the most naturally talented footballer we've got. And I'm with what Keith said on the Amigos. When we're at the final, in 4 weeks today it is, by the way, when we're at the final in 4 weeks' time, and it's ones each or a goal down, you know, you've got St. Maximin on the bench. I don't think there'll be a Newcastle fan in the crowd not wanting him to come on. So for that reason, unless the bid is real and unless the bid is substantial, I can't see it. Unless, of course, St. Maximin has had his nose put out with Gordon, who's clearly vying for the same position. And that's the position he can't get in front of Willock and Joelton at the moment. So in his own mind and with his own ego, does that, well, I'm third choice, fourth choice, I'm not feeling wanted yet, get me a move, so the agent could be stirring things up. There's so many ifs and buts about this. But my opinion is, I don't think they will sell him in the next couple of days. I think he'll retain his place within the squad, and he'll play a role between now and the end of the season where, as and when it's required, it'll be an impact sub, because after, well, now we've got no more games like spare games, you know, like lower league opposition and stuff like that. Every game is going to be a cup final for us on the run in now for the Champions League. So it'll be as and when his impact is necessary, he'll get a run out. And if he's happy with that to the end of the season, performs well and shows his worth, then he could well go for a bigger transfer fee, which means his salary will be bigger. Or he might have just won enough doubters over within the club and they may keep him. So that was a long way of saying I don't think he'll go in the next couple of days, but he probably will in the summer. But I'd like him to stay till the end of the season for the impact sub role.
Just chasing up from one of my contacts about Shelby, and the rumour that he's heard is that Shelby's been offered the same money in a 3.5 year contract. Well, if that's the case,
he's got to take it.
He's got to take it, because that's
same as Chris Wood. They won't stand in his way.
That's a payday. That's a huge payday, and it's his final payday as well. So good luck to Shelby if he does take it. I've had a mixed relationship with Shelby, it has to be said, on this platform. But when the chips were down, he produced and provided, and there's been more good days than bad days with John Joe, it has to be said. James Nicholas says we need to try and offload Fraser. He's always injured. He's out for 3 weeks. When he snapped his laces, putting on his boots. I think Fraser will go. Tom Dixon says, I think we'll keep Fraser. Even Howe said that in his press conference. Yeah, I don't think he's going to keep Fraser, Tom. I really don't. He says he can't wait. He can't wait till he's back in the. Can't wait till he's back in the team. Well, he picks the team and he's nowhere near it. Stu, have Newcastle any interest in Belgian players?
That's because I said
I know.
For the World Cup. But I did, once I got knocked out, I did pick Argentina, but some people have got longer memories. But I do want to have a special mention for Andy Carroll last night for his very good impersonation of Adam West. For those of a certain vintage who'll remember who Adam West was, he was the original Batman. Yeah, Batman. He did his little Adam West impression through the Man United team to put one of them on crutches, and he went for another one as well. So once a Geordie, always a Geordie, as they say. So that's for Mr. Carroll.
Graham Morton says, did you see the Lukaku rumour? He says, I'd rather have him Ray Berardi back. Stephen Nukin says, will not change the pace to shoot Shelby, plus Shelby's injuries this season. It's not good at his age. Lots of Gucci in shops in Milan, says Mozza. And Dyche wants Fraser, says Sean. Shelby got our run going at Leeds last year. You're right, Mark. Yeah, I mean, Fraser, again, he's just another one of those players. 100%, isn't he, Mitch, who, is not really going to get a chance. And Gordon coming in is just another player in front of him.
Goes back to the no sentimentality point.
Yeah.
We are going to add players who move us to the next level. And no matter what we think of those players that are being left behind, how much we feel they've contributed or how nice a guy we feel that they are, when the time to comes to go, we do it with grace and say thank you very much, you've contributed, we'll love you to bits for it, but we're now at a level where we're moving on from you, and I think there's a number of them have already gone that way, and there's more that will go that way, and that's not to say that we're ungrateful for what they've done for the club. Quite the opposite. I think we'll remember some of these names for a long, long time. When we're reaping the rewards in a few years' time, I think some of these names will come up and go, hey, I remember he did this and he did that. We'll not forget the ones who actually cared about the badge on the shirt the way we do. And quite right too.
George?
Well, the other point somebody's already made, and I agree, and I suspect there was something in it for when they were selling Chris Wood. That is that it's not a bad payday for the player. And so somebody like Chris Wood, who's we got, and he did what the manager wanted him to do, and the manager's full of praise for Chris Wood all the time, right up until when he left. But then you have to think, well, how many more years is he going to get at Newcastle at what salary? He's not going to get another golden handshake, that's for sure. Goes to Nottingham Forest, gets a signing on fee for goodness knows what. Probably, almost certainly a raise in salary as well for the next 2 or 3 years to take him very nicely and very wealthily to the end of his career. Now, I think Newcastle are sympathetic to that view that if they can help players like that on, they will. And I think that brings John Joe Shelby into that category as well. Thank you very much. Move on and enjoy what you get out of it. They're not going out of spite. It's out of progress in our club, but also doing them a favour in the sense of financially that the rewards they'll get will soften the blow, as it were.
Yeah, Stu, I think Fraser, 45 million to Everton. It's a good suggestion by Tom Lynch, isn't it?
That would be nice, wouldn't it? Now, there is, I think we're all very familiar with the names that are, Deadwood's probably very disrespectful, but as I've just said there, with the club advancing, the club's going to leave many people behind. And the Frasers and the Shelbys, if we can get money in for them, it can only help us with this dreaded 3-letter acronym of FFP. And the salaries are going to help attract, because they are a good salaries. Remember, Fraser signed for free. So with that would have been a big weekly wage. So if him and Shelby were to go, that would more than cover Madison's incomings. Then it would cover his salary. Then you've just got the transfers, which it depends. I don't know how long the Gordon's contract is. I haven't read it. Did anyone see how long his contract's for? Is it the start of 5 years?
Didn't say. Just said it's
seen,
just said it just said a long contract, a long-term contract. That's all they've said.
Yeah, so that's the thing now. It seems to be the way forward, and because Chelsea signed someone else today as well, didn't it? The rumours are that they're going to change that out there, where you can only limit the term of contracts. So maybe it's changed the mindset of our powers that be. Thought, right, we'll get some movies in now and get the extra, instead of offering a 4-year deal, offer a 5 or 6 year deal to get them in to help spread this over financial fair play if the rules are changing. You know, it's, to steal a phrase from Mitch, it's very fluid how our transfer policy is. And joking aside about getting the man, they're very persistent, but also they're very steadfast in their beliefs. You know, they're not going to waver, and that you don't see them doing a knee-jerk reaction. And I think every single one of us who support Newcastle United just have to wake up every morning and thank the lucky stars we're not scrambling around on deadline day hoping to get Chowdhury on loan and seeing if we can raise a fee for that and bartering over half his salary or stuff like that. It's chalk and cheese. We've moved on a million miles. We're a different stratosphere now to where we were, and it's fantastic, isn't it? We're talking about the likes of Madison and other names that have been mentioned tonight. It's just amazing that we are in this, and it's only going to get better. And this is why I was speaking to Mitch earlier in the week. We'll have to change our mindsets. You know, he mentioned, so, you know, 1-0 away is like Croatia Zagreb. It happened before. This is a different animal. This club is a different beast. The mindset's different. The professional's different. And there's absolutely no way on God's earth that team's going to go out on Tuesday thinking the job's done, because they don't believe it. The manager won't let them believe it. And there'll be 52,000 people in the crowd that'll be there to remind them if they start believing it that way. So it's good times. And I just think it's amazing that we're getting linked with all these fantastic players. So,
yeah, it is, and I'm sure there'll be more ins and outs over the course of the next few days before the transfer window shuts. But as promised from Eddie Howe, he said business would be done. It would be done late in the window. They would keep an eye on the window and see exactly what they needed. And I wouldn't bet against Newcastle bringing in more players before the 1st of February. John, as always, has moved quite quickly, and he's already got the Anthony Gordon T-shirt on sale. It's pinned at the top in the chat. Go to nufcmatters.com, get your Flash Gordon T-shirt today. A nice little design there from John. And just a reminder that the Fans Forum is on Monday night, and we start at 6 o'clock. Good opportunity for fans to come on and have their say about the ins and outs at Newcastle United. And looking ahead, of course, to Tuesday night and the second leg of the semi-final. Newcastle, of course, 1-0 up after the away game. Those of you who live in the Northeast and I guess expats as well who follow the local news will have read of the tragic news of Holly Newton passing away in Hexham. This is tragic, by the way. A stabbing victim, 15-year-old. The girl has died, and a boy, 16-year-old, has been charged with the murder in Hexham, of all places.
Wow.
This is a horrendous news story. It's sadly becoming something that we're looking at time and time again in the Northeast, knife crime. And it's something which, you know, I just hope that, you know, the authorities, the council, the government can start looking into this and try and stamp it out, because that's 2 young lives ruined and, you know, countless family members, unfortunately, now going to have to live with this for the rest of their life. But our thoughts go with Holly's family.
I can't imagine how those people must feel to lose a beautiful girl like that. I mean, I'm a grandfather, and if I was in that position, that would kill me. That would be the end of me. Never mind anything else. I cannot imagine how those poor people feel, and we can only send our love and best wishes to them. And definitely got to do something about getting hold of this wish to carry knives all the time, and not just carry them, but actually use them. And then you look, you're right, Steve. The other side is the perpetrator's life's ruined. And what about his family? They've got to live with that stigma. It's just unbearable. So
Tragic.
yeah, let's do what we can to get rid of these this sort of nastiness, and I've got to say that this has gone berserk nationally, never mind just locally. I mean, in my 30 years on the North Tyneside bench, I can't remember in all that time ever having to deal with more than perhaps over 30 years, half a dozen incidences where involving knives, and I just find it also upsetting, and it really is. It's tragic, beyond tragic.
It is. It's
so
very, very sad. Well, our thoughts are with the family, and of course, our thoughts are with you. The chat, I'm sure you'll have seen it, lads, is full of comments and best wishes for you both tomorrow. Our thoughts and obviously, our prayers go with the Mitchell family tomorrow as you lay your beloved mum and Marjorie to rest. So,
and I love as well.
Yeah, 100%. So, hope it goes well, guys.
I hope you'll excuse me tomorrow night, Steve. That's not.
We will, George. We will.
I don't feel that.
Our thoughts will be with you, George. Give her a good send off.
We will.
All right. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks to the moderators. Thanks to everybody in the chat for all your well wishes. Thanks to Stu. Thanks to George, and thanks to Mitch. Take care, lads.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.